Inferences and attributions are abstractions, and it doesn't matter if the story told about the phenomena corresponds to concepts or objects. It still all falls into the realm of the mind, as reality is fundamentally mental in nature. The idea of your perceptual experience of being a physical creature with a brain that produces consciousness, which can recognize an object and attribute reality unto it, is an experience experienced in a mental context. Physicality finds its context within the mental, and is received existentially as such. And then the stories we tell about it are yet even more workings of the same mental facility. And conveying a cold, clinical, hard, scientific description of reality doesn't make it any less of an absurdity, even at the most mundane face value. Reductionism doesn't make it any less of a complete fantasy. But we forget this and start believing in our own descriptions and narratives as if they really mean something beyond being simply a fabricated experiential illusion. We don't like to think about it like that. You dig? We much rather think of it as real and actual, which, oddly, in this case, means independent of the mind. It has to be that way in order for me to believe I'm real. If it's only a contrived experience, then it doesn't have the same authenticity. It isn't as important. There is more importance to things if they exist independently of me. And this is why we try to explain away this unexplainable experience with objectivity. It adds a layer of security and comfort. And with objectivity, the name of the game is inference and attribution. In other words, the source of existence is external to awareness, something that can be ascribed to some outside factor in sensory information, beyond your own mind. And this conclusion can be established, sustained, and verified by inferring. That is, using a conceptual tool to build a knowledge based on interactions with sensory information with an assumed premise that the sensory information isn't in fact just sensory information, but is in fact an actual object unto which reality can be attributed. See how it works? But unfortunately, truth isn't found in the field of perception, nor realized by the knowledge that is based on the aspects found in the field of perception. The truth is the context, not the phenomena within the context, nor the abstractions that seek to organize the phenomena conceptually. Inferences and attributions, mere ideological rationalizations. And this has become the main issue with intellectual exercise. For, you see, the problem with philosophy is that it compels a subject to think. And so, as many of you are probably wondering, how is that a problem? Thinking is good, isn't it? It's logical, it's rational, it's reasonable, it's common sense. And how much better if the subject is a free thinker, or better yet, a positive thinker, or better even still, an outside-the-box thinker. These are the proper intellectual tools considered to be the most refined, exquisite attributes ever to be desired. Yes, of course. But, as we have already recently established, intellectualism is a veritable handicap within the spectrum of the pure mind. In a realm where the narrow passage to freedom is facilitated through the implementation of unlearning, thinking is a counterproductive utility. Not to mention that the more common characteristics often associated with advanced intellect are not as compassionate as one might be inclined to believe. If anything, it's been continually demonstrated to be quite the opposite. As, more often than not, we find a certain degree of psychopathy, a lack of empathy, and a cold, calculated mindset, bereft of sympathetic sentiments, to be the most prominent features to accompany a high intellect. So intellectualism is not all that it's cracked up to be. It can be a useful instrumentation, to be sure, but certainly not a be-all and end-all application that is the best tool for every job. Tool for a job? Yes, I know this is a perplexing metaphor, as many of you have elevated the status of the voice inside your head to a lofty position, fancying the thinking mind to be your very identity, of which is the real true perplexity, as we've already seen from the premature camping grounds of methodological solipsism and the implications of René Descartes' I think, therefore I am. Establishing an identification with the thinking function doesn't go nearly deep enough. Let us not forget that which gives the narrating dictator its context. Yes, the most obvious thing in the world that's completely overlooked, remember? Just in case you were having a little trouble sorting it out from all your bullshit. No, never mind all that noise. You are that which provides the framework, not any of the phenomenal content within the frame, which includes your abstractions, of which is just intellectual narrative. Nothing more. A story you tell yourself to keep a brave face. The yarn you spin to hold your head up high and to help keep hope afloat. I understand, but it isn't an identity. Now, some gurus out there might tell you to simply observe your thoughts. And while this may be a good exercise to warm up for the bigger game, it isn't nearly sufficient enough to bring the disturbance to stillness. You really might kind of wanna begin to allow this condensed conglomerate of tension a modicum of freedom so that it might find the space and room to breathe in order for it to have a chance to establish some long-needed stability. The mind perceives an experience as a means to pretend it has a nature. The mind cannot settle down because it is afraid. Afraid of its own permanent, changeless, unqualitative and unquantitative, formless constancy. You are an expression of a thing, what the essence could never really be. A thing with shape, location, and a sense of finality. So there is an idea of a physical manifestation that is in quiet desperation as the unlimited contrives its own helplessness, as the necessary contrast needed to recognize a self-distinction. There is always ever one, but there is a need to create the illusion of another in order to even be able to acknowledge this one. There is always ever one. It's a sticky situation. So fear is the fuel of thoughts. Now, does that mean we have to police our thoughts, or guard our thoughts, or be hyper-vigilant about the content of thoughts? Of course not. You can't necessarily control the composition and subject matter of your thoughts, but you can certainly bring the mind to stillness, which ceases production of thoughts, as a still mind is no longer transfixed in a stupor of fear. Nothing brings a more serene calm than a still mind at rest, completely accepting of its true empty nature.